Alright everyone, initially I was just going to do one video on the subject of YouTube's use of Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, encyclopedic articles underneath videos that have certain titles or descriptions or tags or whatever. I'm not exactly 100% sure how it works, how it's determined. It's like global warming and Obama and some of these things. You'll see the wiki article. By the way, you can use certain browsers or add-ons and extensions and you won't see them anymore, mine included, which is why initially I didn't even know it was happening. But we've got to talk as well about the rise of alt tech, because it really is, it's twain with the basic fundamental premise of why YouTube's tinkering with the encyclopedia thing is a bad idea. Now, first and foremost, I would say this. It's not helpful. It's intrusive. A lot of people that are using the site, they, if they're low tech, maybe they're going to have to go and Google how to actually get these encyclopedic articles removed from underneath the video. Because my big problem is looking at it. Like if I use the Opera browser, I see them. On my normal browser, Pale Moon, I don't. The main problem is it shoves the comments down. I have to scroll a little bit further. It's a little bit less obvious. There's a comment functionality, and it looks sort of like how they hid the messages, which at one point on YouTube, it was, a big red button like the subscribe button, and you just clicked it and you could send someone a message. Now they're discontinuing it because people stopped using it. They stopped using it because they hid it in the Creator Studio. That functionality was moved even further to a community tab. For a while they didn't even have that, and so people naturally stopped using it. Most people didn't even know there was a messaging system on YouTube. Of course, I had been using YouTube since 2007, so a little bit different, because I can remember really primitive YouTube before they even had like 480 functionality. Like I can remember the gangsta days of 360p, and that's all you had, and it was very funny. And then they had 480, and they're like, oh, it's high definition, it's widescreen, oh, it's great. And it was all very funny. And then they fixed the buffering issues, which was the best part. But overall, the thing I would say is this is not actually it's not actually performing any significant function on the site. What's the point of having these encyclopedia links? It's like, okay, someone made a video about global warming. You have an article, a Wikipedia article for global warming. So, who's going to actually click that? If a person is like, well, global warming is a conspiracy, it's a hoax by, the feds and the globalists. If they think that, it's just going to piss them off to see that. They're not going to change their mind. In fact, it's more likely to cause them to be less likely to do so. You're not confronting them with any unique information. You're not putting a personable face on the bottom line of what you would suggest is the truth behind global warming. What you've done is you've made it cold and corporatistic. One company advertising. Now, this is going to be the same when they do this with news. They're saying, well, for certain breaking news, we're going to have, basically, it'll be exactly like this. You'll see links like on some of my videos in the future, like CNN, I'm sure, other trusted individuals, trusted sources of information. Are any of you actually going to click those for anything but, you happen to be really obsessed with the topic? And if you are, you're already watching some YouTube creator, presumably if it's alt media, which they're going to be the ones 9/10 of the time covering these things, you probably don't trust CNN or Fox or Breitbart or whoever the hell they're going to trust with this. It'll probably be CNN, the New York Times, maybe it'll be the Young Turks. Who knows? It'll be Mar or something. It'd be funny. But second to this, there's a second layer, and that's that YouTube's tinkering is self-destructive. We've seen it before with formerly dominant groups. They try to change too much. It becomes purposeless. They basically they perfectly fill their niche. And then they get uncomfortable because they're like, it's too much success, I guess, so they sort of self-destruct. It's almost like it seems like an unconscious urge among people to want more competition, like, primordial capitalistic sentiment or something. And what happens is that they then knock themselves off their perch. Nobody else can go up against Google or Facebook or anything. They can't compete with them. It's fiscally more or less impossible, but these sites can destroy themselves. We've seen this on Twitter. Twitter has essentially begun to cripple itself. It's a massive purge of user base, changing its rules constantly, shadow bans and things, the quality filter. It's unhelpful. It's begun to decline. The user base is shrinking now on Twitter. Once a site goes down that road, it tends not to reverse course, by the way. you'd need a major leadership change there and a totally new sentiment, which means they'd have to go like full libertarian or something, because right now they're full police state. Well, that's obviously not going to happen. Veritas little investigation into how they potentially misuse people's private messages and store them indefinitely, that could have had something to do with it. What I would say second to this, because big tech sites have begun to do this at the end of a paradigm shift, which is why it's like a natural, sort of cycle of time, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. Because of this, if larger creators are not branching out into at least some alt-tech sites to put their content on, they are making a huge mistake. Because I can see that the way in which you've got the breakdown of the older tech sites, at least in part, roughly, and the rise of new sites that have, innovative new ideas. Some of them will succeed, some of them will they'll fall out of existence. Some of these sites like VidMe, well, not technically all tech, but a competitive video platform, completely fell out of existence. It simply didn't gain enough traction, whereas if you look at BitChute, it looks like it's beginning to take off. Tim Pool just joined actually the other day. Others have as well. Bearing's there, and Malnu, and Sargon, I'm there, among others. Some of the sites will make it, some won't. But it roughly mimics the rise of early social media. It looks about the same, and you've got to understand that there was an article, the first use of the term legacy media, I did a little digging when Greg Hunter used that term. It was an article from the Clinton era, and it was talking about how fundamentally cable firms, older news sites, were making a huge mistake because they were legacy media, because they weren't making the jump to the internet fast enough. They weren't putting enough resources into branching out and exploiting what would become a massive new interactive audience. They failed to do that. Look at what's happening to the corporate media right now. I am very happy to be on multiple alt-tech sites and doing well and expanding, relatively quickly there. Over 1,000 people are following me on Steemit. I've only been on Steemit for a few months. Over 17,000 on BitChute. Over 10,000 on Gab. I think almost 17,000 now on Minds. This is a good thing. It's good to branch out and diversify your portfolio, because if one site collapses, that means it doesn't matter. It no longer matters because, your user base has easy access to all that same material. It's already there. You're already established. They already know it's you. I see some larger creators acting a lot like some of the corporate media sites did during the early days of the info revolution on the earlier wave internet prior to social media. They're making the same mistake. They're discounting alt-tech's power. They're discounting the concept that crypto can be used to create an ad-free internet, essentially, that will deliver a better user experience. They're not taking into consideration the possibility of alt-tech actually supplanting existing tech. At least in some situations. It's not going to be across the board. It's not like, okay, all the old tech sites crash and burn, all of a sudden Twitter no longer exists, everyone starts using Gab. YouTube fails and everyone's on BitChute. That's not what I'm saying. In some cases that may happen though. Why would you want to be left behind? These things can move very quickly. Think of how quickly Facebook was built. Think of how quickly it went from an afterthought. It's like, yeah, this is a platform for college kids. It's sort of the college kids' academic MySpace. Very quickly, within the scope of a couple of years, there were, 100 million users on the platform. Think of even YouTube. You look at the massive rate of growth. Since I've been on YouTube, it's like, back when I first arrived on YouTube, if you had 10,000 subscribers, you were like a rock star because there weren't nearly as many people using it. In that span of time, whole nations that weren't really hooked up to the internet have joined the info revolution too. There are parts of West Africa, certain urban areas in East Africa, certainly Eastern Europe and parts of Southeast Asia and Latin America that weren't so much hooked into the internet. Now it's an info revolution. They're all over the place. You look at even Chinese involvement, like Alibaba or something like that. I can remember back when it was eBay instead of Amazon, you were probably using it as an online merchant. Amazon was like, oh yeah, we wrote a book or something. Now, of course, it's all-encompassing. I think it's the largest corporation in the world at this point, and I think Google is number 2. There you go. And it's going to continue. You are making an enormous mistake if you're not using alt-tech. You don't have to make it a primary presence, but you should put resources into it. At this point, I'm kind of, migrating some of the content to alt-tech preferentially. Because I'm looking, it's like I look at the difference between Twitter and Gab. I look at my strangulated presence on Twitter. Much larger platform, I've been there longer, and yet the rate of growth on that platform because of shadow banning, because of suppression, and because of algorithmic manipulation is slower than on Gab with 1% of the fucking user base of Twitter. So it gets to the point where I'm like, maybe I should just be maybe I shouldn't have a Twitter at this point other than the vestigial one that I claim as mine, but I'm like, hey, this is the official Twitter. It's kind of like the Facebook page. It's a zombie. I don't use Facebook anymore. I use Minds preferentially. If I want to upload pictures of my garden or connect in a social manner, it's going to be on Minds. It's not going to be on Facebook. Facebook's too manipulated. It's shrinking. Again, the rate of growth is like, who cares? It's pointless. There's no point to using the platform anymore. It's no longer cool or vibrant or growing. It's no longer a good place to meet people for any real purpose. It's basically a messaging app at this point. People message each other on Facebook. It's more like an address book for a phone, replacing that and making it more straightforward and streamlined. And mobile Facebook is probably way greater than the desktop experience. I would know. I'm not part of the smartphone revolution, nor do I want to be. Yeah, sorry about that, folks, but no, you can't call me up on the phone because it's just not going to happen. I keep my phone off, and it's a cheap flip phone. But no, alt tech is rising. YouTube is making a mistake doing this. The major formatting changes to the structure of the site that normal users, normie users that are maybe mediocre in their technological aptitude, it inconveniences them disproportionately. This isn't just, by the way, bothering people like me who are like, well, I'm alt media, I don't want fuck Wikipedia, I don't want its articles here. It's not just that, it's literally disruptive to my audience. I'm seeing a lot of people, when it first showed up there on the Obama video, I'm sitting there getting like 20 fucking messages, oh, YouTube is trying to censor you, and it's not really about that, it's not a necessary change. Don't fix what ain't broken. That would be my advice to all the big tech firms. It's like when the soccer moms of America or whatever, they're like, well, we need more censorship of these extreme opinions online. Well, you never said that before. Look, the same people are on these sites as were before. It was never a major social issue. People understood, hey, sometimes people troll, they bully, they say off-the-wall shit. Maybe they even threaten one another. Ultimately, though, your online experience is not particularly hampered by it. Most people, it doesn't matter. It's not actually spreading violence. If anything, the internet reduces violence where it's prevalent. That's the way that it works. It's the way it always will. The big tech sites should go back to the way things were in 2015, which is basically the golden era of the whole internet. If you look at the internet in 2015, that's basically the peak. You've got all the greatest technological achievements without any of the manipulation and censorship sort of crap, other than some copyright issues. That's just what I think anyway. I mean, it's not like I know how to brand myself, market things, and have good ideas. It's not like that's true. Yeah, okay. That's about all. Peace out.